Shabbos. I want to start with inviting everyone. This Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we're going to have a United North Shore event of prayer for what's happening in the Ukraine, for our brothers and sisters there, for peace, and also for the well-being of those in northern New South Wales and Queensland who have been affected terribly by the floods. So please come along, because these prayers are very, very important and give them incredible strength. And let me explain. Let me begin with Purim. Purim is in 2 weeks. And we know Haman comes to Achashverosh, the king at the time, and he says to him, there is a nation, Mefuzar Mefayred B'chalamim, who is separate and disparate amongst all the nations. And I want you to agree to kill them. And the question is, what is this idea that Haman says that they're separate? Who cares that they're disparate? What's the difference? Says the Nesivos HaMishpat. He explains that what Haman was saying is, very simply, they're not a united people. Each one goes in their own different ways. And because they're not united, therefore they won't be able to come together to fight back. So we'll have an easy time to get rid of them. That's what Haman says. That's the practical response. What's Esther's response to this? She tells Mordechai, Lech Knesses Kol HaYehudim, go gather all the Jews, bring them all together to show that we are united and one. And that will be a way that we could defeat the plans of Haman, not only technically and practically, but more so mystically, because we know Barcheinu Avinu Kolanu Ki Echad, that when as Hashem bless us, when we're united and we come together. And that is why, once successful, we have the mitzvot of Purim. And the mitzvot of Purim emphasize this idea of unity, starting from the unique mitzvah of Purim, which we don't find anywhere else, in the fact that Mishlach Manot, we give gifts of foods to friends. What's the point? They're not impoverished. If they were impoverished, that's Matanis Levyanim. That's the other mitzvah of giving gifts to the poor. But the idea of giving gifts to friends emphasized this idea that where you're united, friendship, connection. And that's how we're able to bring down the miracle of Purim. And that's how we can always be successful against the enemies who want to destroy us. And it's expressed in that mitzvah, of course, in the mitzvah of charity, a mitzvah of having a party together with many people, in the mitzvah of hearing the Megillah, necessarily in a large crowd of Jews, to bring out this idea of Jewish union and unity. This also explains today is a very special day in that regard. Today is Echad B'Adar, the first day of the month of Adar. And in the time of the temple, this was the day that people were donating the half a shekel for the sake of the sacrifices in the temple. Each person had to give a half a shekel, not more, not less. And the question obviously is, why half a shekel? Why couldn't they say a whole number? Why necessarily a half a number? And the emphasis is that we are but half without someone else. Without a fellow Jew, we are not complete. That's what the mitzvah represented. And what that means is that sometimes what's necessary is for us to give in to something, because we think sometimes that the other person is hurting us, or the other person, I don't need him. I could do my own thing. And he's just hurting me, affecting me negatively. That's what the brothers of Yosef did. Let's sell him. Let's get rid of him. We'll see what's happened with his dream. We don't need him in our life. And what happened? They certainly needed him. Only through him were they able to be saved in Egypt. Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, relates that at the beginning of Corona, there was a group of bar mitzvah boys in the Upper Galilee who had to cancel their events because of Corona. Shouldn't endanger other people's lives having these bar mitzvahs. And Rabbi Lau spoke to them by Zoom and told them the following story. He says, I'm a Holocaust survivor. I lost my father and my mother. I lost my whole family, practically. Him and his brother survived. And he was taken in by an uncle who lived in Israel in Kiryat Mochkin. And in this, as it was getting close to his bar mitzvah, he remembers it was Parshas B'Shalach, and he studied to read from the Torah on his bar mitzvah. And that gave him a little bit of strength and a feeling of getting back to normal, shall we say, after the Holocaust. The shul was full with people, all the guests that came for the rabbi's nephew, Holocaust survivor. And as soon as the reading of the Torah, the time for the reading of the Torah came up, he put on his talit and he went up to the bima in order to be able to read from the Torah. But as he gets to the bima, there's the regular Bal Korah, the one who reads the Torah every week. He did it as a volunteer. He read from the Torah every week, and it was his life. To him, it was a very precious thing for him to read from the Torah. And he came up, and they forgot to tell him that this week there's a bar mitzvah boy who's going to be reading from the Torah. So he gets upset. He says, what? I've studied all week. I've done it. I do it all the time for free. And now you're going to tell me I can't read, especially when the shul is so packed. So he says, the bar mitzvah boy, Rabbi Lau, he says, you know what? You read. I'll have many opportunities in my life to read. You could read. And he says that was his first mitzvah of his life, of his bar mitzvah, after bar mitzvah. And certainly Rabbi Lau had the opportunity to present before thousands upon thousands, before kings and ministers and prime ministers and presidents and the great religious leaders. And what that tells us is that sometimes to unite, we have to feel half. We have to be able to give of ourselves. We have to be able to give in to something to unite with someone else. So that's what we should think about as we are on the 1st of Adar. And as we think about the brothers and sisters in the Ukraine, to give towards them financially, and to come together, give your time, to pray together, to say Tehillim regularly for them. I heard yesterday, one of the rabbis in Ukraine who was still there till yesterday, his name is Rabbi Levitansky. And he said that the community, by the way, he said, 17 years he's there in Suma, whatever, I'll pronounce it right. Suma, Ukraine. It's very close to the Russian border. He's there for 17 years. He's never had one word of anti-Semitism said to him. He walks in the street looking like a rabbi. No one's ever driven past and said, dirty Jew. I'll tell you what, I can't say the same here in Sydney, Australia. When I used to walk a particular direction closer towards Hornsby, there was probably not a Shabbos that we didn't have people screaming out of the car, dirty Jew, Heil Hitler, something of that nature. And he's saying 17 years he hasn't heard a word of anti-Semitism. As a matter of fact, goes in the streets now and people come up to him, he says, and say thank you to the Jewish community for their prayers. We know what they're doing. They're praying for us. They're helping us. We see it on the internet. And we're very grateful for it. This is not Jews in those communities. This is non-Jews in those communities. He says that there is this um, Orthodox minister or Russian Orthodox priest, Ukrainian Orthodox, I'm sure they wouldn't call him Russian Orthodox, Ukrainian Orthodox priest who he works with for humanitarian purposes. And the Ukrainian priest said to his congregation, he says to them, we are seeing miracles like in the time of the Bible, biblical miracles. And the reason is because the Jews are praying for us. So they are getting strength by our prayers. When we come together and daven for them and help them, we are helping their cause, even if it's not physical. Spiritually, it has an effect. And just the very fact that they know about it gives them strength and courage to be able to deal with this incredible difficulty. And let's be very clear. We're not only helping them, we're helping us. We're helping ourselves, because we don't know how far this goes. Does this reach China, Taiwan? Where else is Russia going? The whole world has come together, almost the whole world. Not for China, not North Korea, not Iran. But the Western world has come together against Russia. The question is it enough? Are they doing enough? But we do know this is something that we don't know how far it's going to go. Hopefully, we're able to stop it in its tracks. And by us davening to Hashem, who's the one who's ultimately in control of the world, Hashem will stop this madness, this war, this loss of life, this killing of innocent people. It's mind-boggling to believe what is happening. These innocent people just being killed by bombs exploding everywhere. And we hope Hashem brings safety and security to Ukraine, to the world, to our fellow brothers and sisters on the border, our refugees who are still hiding in their basements. Hashem should protect them. Let us say prayers. Let us give tzedakah to help that protection. So, encourage you once again. The North Shore Synagogue is on board. Sada College is on board. And it looks like Kilat Masada is on board as well. To come together, to unite in prayer as a community. And Hashem will bring his blessing for each and every one of us. Shabbos.